related to that question of what is the role of the human and the role of the AI. Peter, I'd like to get your opinion from an artist perspective. Can a human using an AI generator call themselves an artist? For example, in early September, an AI-generated artwork won first prize in the Colorado State Fair's Fine Arts competition. And this decision did not seem to be very well received by creatives. For example, one tweet called it, and this is a direct quote, "pretty fucking shitty that an AI-generated piece won first." Direct quote, that an AI-generated piece won first place. And this tweet didn't seem to be a fringe opinion. It has over 89,000 likes and over 17,000 retweets. So what's your take from an artist perspective? Is a human producing AI-generated art an artist? And does AI-generated art hold the same value as human-generated art?
Yeah, thanks, Tessa, for the question. I mean, from my perspective, the art community seems to be by and large in step with some of the legal perspective that Professor Morris and Michael have been telling us, that, if there isn't a human behind it, it's not something that, from the legal perspective, we'd protect, and from the artistic perspective, that we would see as a piece of art, right? One way I think of this, and I've seen this image before and was not impressed, this prize-winning image. To me, it's not particularly good. It's not actually a very strong example of what you can do with Midjourney, which is the platform that the artist used to create it. So I think of it like, an unpracticed person can't just pick up a saxophone and create jazz, right? It's kind of the same thing here. There's good AI art and there's bad AI art. Knowing how to prompt the machine learning algorithm, knowing how to prompt Midjourney or DALL-E 2 to get the kind of image you want, that's an art in itself. It takes time, it takes patience, it takes skill, it takes some knowledge about how the algorithm processes language, right? So it is something like playing the saxophone that takes time and practice to actually be able to do. So creating good art with tools like this isn't something that an unpracticed person can just do instantly. I don't think a lot of people would call it that. And to my mind, that might be why there's so much negative reaction to this particular piece. This guy played around with this generator a little bit and thought, let's see what happens. But there are creators using these tools who are creating phenomenal work that I would call art, right? So to kind of answer your second question, right, does AI-generated art have the same value as human-generated art? I think I'd answer yes to that, but currently, based on where the technology is now, in the future, who knows? But currently, the products of Stable Diffusion, which is this style of neural network generating, like text prompted image generating software, products of this software that I've seen that I would call art are art because of the skilled creative labor that a human has put into it, right? There are different people that I follow on TikTok that are using this technology in a very creative way to rotoscope animations on top of existing footage, to create these like dreamlike image sequences. And it's all really fascinating. And I think the response to that work in the artistic community is positive by and far. So yeah, I think it's not just that it's beautiful and interesting and weird because it is novel, because it's something that AI can do that artists couldn't do before. I don't see it that way. I think that the artists are using their skill and expertise as creative thinkers to guide, or to choose when to guide and when not to guide, right? These are all kind of creative choices that have to go into something that we would value as art. And good AI art, I guess, in my sphere, what would be considered that would be that which still has that kind of human impetus behind it.
So Tessa, I'm going to jump you and ask Peter a question directly. Sorry, because I think this is really interesting. Peter, do you think that if this image that's on the screen now is what you call like better AI created art image, that tweet there has less purchase, has less likes, has less, or is it I'm
Yeah,
just,
so that's an interesting question. I think it's got to be a combination, because this account, I don't know this person, but I'm not sure that that's somebody who represents the opinion of the art community, of
okay.
people
That's
who
kind
are
that was kind of like the,
pursuing this, right? But then I think, again, the quality of the artwork may have had a different response. I think the issue here was not the art itself, but the ignorance of the competition judges. This feeling of, wow, this is cool. We don't understand what went into it, so we're judging it based on a set of standards that actually doesn't apply to what's in front of us. And I think that reaction is more to one of dishonesty than to the art itself.
sorry, Tess, couldn't help myself.
Oh, no, please do. I jump in, interrupt me. Michael, I do want to confirm with you, though, there is a claim that work doesn't have to be good to be copyright eligible, right? You can get a copyright for bad art.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's right. And there's lots of, I'm an armchair expert on this because I was a art history minor in college, so I'm self-proclaimed expert now. But yeah, you're exactly right. It doesn't have to be good. It has to be original. It has to be original, and it has to be fixed. It's the original work of authorship that's fixed in a tangible medium. It does not have to be good. Professor Morris said that she's a patent attorney. She'll tell you that you can get a patent registration for a patent for a machine that doesn't work either. Doesn't have to work, and it doesn't have to be good. So you could get a registration for doodle with squiggles as long as it has sufficient originality.
That's exactly right. I tell my students all the time, there's lots of silly patents out there, right? And in terms of, commercial product versus your patent filing, usually patents are filed pretty early. So you may want to revisit and file some additional applications because you want to make sure you're capturing something that works in your patent filing. And similarly with the artists, yeah, one of the interesting things I think about the Andy Warhol case, and you guys who follow what's going on with that, brief primer for everyone else who's like, what is she talking about? Currently in front of the Supreme Court, the Andy Warhol Foundation and a photographer by the name of Lynn Goldsmith are in a battle over a copyright of a photo that Lynn took of the artist formerly known as Prince, who, when he was alive, she was working on sort of like a new artist expose and was hired to take, like 7 or 8 photos of him. She took these photos in black and white. I think it was Vanity Fair, guys. Am I getting the right magazine correct? Who then gave one of those photos to Andy Warhol and hired him to sort of provide a more provocative take on it. And then when Prince passed away, all of these sort of images and artwork kind of like were published, and it became known to the photographer that there was this other body of work, arguably a very, for the most part, all of us are agreeing that it's a derivative work of the underlying photograph, and whether or not Andy Warhol's use is considered fair use. Well, when you think about what's happening with AI and where you can potentially go down this path, and Michael was great about it in terms of AI is really using data, right? But in the context of this creator framework, it's other people's artwork. Like you're training the algorithm on the work of others. And at some point, there really is a question of, is it direct copying? Is it arguably a derivative? It's probably a derivative of multiple works, which further complicates the issue of whether or not you should have an independent copyright that's created from AI generated work. But I think that takes us back to why the courts, at least, have been really resistant if they can't identify a human. Because as you think about how quickly this becomes really complex, that's the problem. Like that's, where do you sort of, if you think of, I think of it in terms of tracing, where do you trace the, original work of authorship fixed in a tangible medium to when you're now scanning, training data over 100,000 images.
Mhm.
And
It's-
just to take that one step further, that's part of the problem in terms of, that's one of the main concerns, is that someone goes out there and generates a bunch of AI created content and then is able to basically monopolize the field of art by saying there's no more inspiration that isn't mine, right? You're seeing a little bit of that happen in the music industry right now with the proliferation of SoundCloud and Spotify, and everybody's got a place to publish their music such that you can go into almost any song and say, oh, I can find a little bit of inspiration from that song for this song. So you've seen a kind of proliferation of cases in the music industry, kind of tying one piece of song to that. I think the concern is that extrapolates into the art world here, the kind of physical art world with this.
That's very, very insightful, very helpful.